In what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? Throughout the making of my magazine, I have attempted to pastiche the general conventions of a rock magazine, and in particular the magazine Kerrang, as it has a similar audience, while attempting to make mine individual so as to make my magazine more desirable. Front cover. The name of my magazine is called Encore, which is music terminology. Generally, rock magazines have basic names which state the obvious, such as Rock Sound. However, I wanted my magazine name to be meaningful, like Kerrang, with connotations behind the name rather than stating the obvious, making my magazine more intriguing. Rock magazine mastheads are usually intricate and detailed. However, I believe that the masthead looked better, bold and simple, so it could be spotted from between many magazines on a magazine rack. I took the idea of the font I used on my front cover from Kerrang. Across the front cover, it only uses a minimal amount of font so as not to overcomplicate the page. So on my front cover, I only used one font, but unlike Kerrang, I changed the style of the font in different strap lines so as to make the front cover more interesting and to exaggerate the contents of the magazine. For example, on some strap lines I made the font italic and others I made it bold. I did not use any serif fonts on the front cover so as to not to overcomplicate it. Also, similar to Kerrang, I have left minimal white space so as to connote the magazine is bursting with information. By looking at rock magazines, I noticed that to attract the reader, when they use colloquial language and persuasive words, therefore I use the words win, exclusive, awesome and swag. Cell lines are no longer a major aspect of magazines, therefore I decided not to use them as the cover lines alone are capable of attracting the reader. Banners are a common convention of a magazine, therefore it was vital that I use them to make sure the cover line stood out against the background and connote that they are important. Rock magazines are generally have a dark colour scheme which represents the frightening and rebellious stereotype, Walter Lippmann 1922, which is associated with the genre. Therefore I used house style colours of deep red and black. All magazines have their own house style, so I use the same font and colours throughout my pages so it is distinguished from its competitors. Many magazines use pull quotes which act as straplines to the main headline. I have added the pull quote, "I'm back, this time for good." On rock music magazines, the artists have a direct gaze at the audience so as to connote the magazine is talking directly to them. Therefore, I have used an image which is looking straight out into the audience's eyes, and she is placed in the middle of the page to imply her importance and to fill the most white space as possible. On the front covers of magazines, attractive people are placed so as to portray the audience's ideal self or ideal partner. Carl Rogers, 1981. Therefore, I have used a good-looking girl as my main cover image with an alternative look so as to attract the correct audience. Contents page. Generally, in magazines, it states "this week" in the magazine's name and contents page, yet I felt that it was clear to the reader what the page is without stating contents page, as this would take up unnecessary room on the page. It was vital that I added the issue number and cover date of the magazine, as this is generic information that is needed for a magazine. I also added page numbers of the different articles to the page as to follow the job of a contents page. I added contact details and subscription to this page as it is the common page which these details are found. Anchorage is important for the pictures which feature on the contents page, so the reader knows what the page features. I have added common subheaders and alternative subheaders to the ones I have come across in magazines. I have added vital subheaders such as news, reviews and features, yet I have also added the subtitles exclusive and win to entice the reader by making it more exciting and to connote that the reader cannot receive this information from anywhere else. After looking at contents pages, I found that it used several varying sizes of images. Therefore, I used photos in the columns, however, all the same size so it looks symmetrical. I also added large images of the double page spread so the reader knows which is the main article. Editor's notes are usually to introduce the issue of the magazine and attract the audience into reading the magazine. Usually, the editor speaks in a peer-to-peer mode of address, therefore I use colloquial words such as badass and awesome, and directly address the audience by using the word you. Double page spread. When writing the body copy of my magazine, I decided to pastiche Kerrang, as the audience of my magazine is also teenagers and young adults. I have used a peer-to-peer / teacher-to-pupil mode of address using colloquial language, so as to not look down on my audience, but make them feel as though my magazine is someone to turn to when they need some information. For example, I use swear words, as rock magazines usually portray a rebellious nature. The title of my double-page spread is a quote from the band, as during my research I found this to be a common element amongst rock magazines. Furthermore, it is direct speech, therefore connotes the band are talking directly to the reader. Moreover, the quote doubles as anchorage for the picture, as it states, "We don't hang out in graveyards," yet the band are in a graveyard, which suggests comedy, further exaggerating the peer-to-peer mode of address, suggesting that the band have a close relationship with its audience. I used anchorage on the picture of the girls, which represents the emotion of the band above. For example, like the double-page spread from Kerrang here. Usually, the photo of the band are placed directly in the centre of the double-page spread. However, I decided to change this composition and place the band in the centre of one side of the double-page spread. I did this because it was vital for the background of the graveyard to be in view, as otherwise the title would not be ironic. Rock bands rarely smile in photos in magazines to portray an unruly front. Therefore, I chose a picture where the three girls were looking serious. Again, I used pictures of attractive girls that are wearing black, therefore look alternative, so they do not look out of place in a rock magazine and attract the right audience. And they also look like an ideal self or an ideal partner. I also included generic elements of a magazine such as page numbers and bylines.